thanks Andy for taking time to do this interview. It's been a little bit long overwaited, and most of these questions were put in around Christmas time from our Facebook group. We're going to categorise the questions, so this should work, all being well. And I'd just like to personally thank Antia, who helps me moderate the Facebook group where this lot's come from. So,
cool.
Punishments of luxury. A question from somebody called Chris Bain, who's asking, does new technology make the songwriting process easier or harder? And do you think there's anything lost with new technology?
It makes it easier and harder, and yes, there are things lost. Obviously, we could never have dreamed when we were teenagers in Paul's mum's house of the stuff we've got now in our computers. All of the different samples, the different soft synths, and you just call them up. I mean, the thing I really like about writing in the box, in the computer, is that basically when you stop working on a song, when you just go save, the next time you come back to it, it's exactly where it was. You don't have to rewire things and change things and get your notes out and reset everything. It's exactly as you left it, so then you can just take it on from there. That's great. Some of the issues, I mean, Paul and I always talk about the tyranny of choice. There are so many options that you have to be quite ruthless in terms of editing yourself and make a decision that you're going to use these sounds or go in that direction, because otherwise you can just get lost in too many choices. Yeah, I mean, one thing you miss is that, you know, particularly in the early days, we had a particular audio palette because we only had a few instruments, and that was all we had. So, you know, if you wanted a pad, a chord, it was an organ. If you wanted a synth, we had two, bass guitar, a couple of drums, that was it. So, yeah, you know, you win some, you lose some with the new technology, but I think you have to use it because you can't go back and just sort of pastiche the way you used to make records.
That's excellent. Another question now coming from Sue Cartwright, and she's reflecting on the latest album. And she's asking, which sound has been the strangest you've heard out and about in everyday life and thought, hell, there's a track in that?
Well, actually, on the album there's a song called Ghost Star, and I found myself a few years ago actually standing on the estuary at Port Merion in North Wales and hearing this bird echoing across the water down this. It was the most melancholy and haunting sound, and I knew I'd heard it before, but I couldn't for the life of me remember which bird it was. So several days of going through catalogues of bird sounds, I finally found it, and it was a curlew. But the samples in the libraries weren't great, and so I went back with a digital recorder. Fortunately got some, and so I then mixed some of my recordings and some of the curlews, and there's a lot of editing to get it to work and trying to get rid of hiss and background noise, but that was something that was really, you know, just heard that sound and went, I've got to have that sound in a song. And it's, yeah, I just think it's incredibly mournful, it's beautiful. So that's a specific example of hearing a sound and going, I want that.
A lot of fans are resonating this track with sort of Stan Lowe, and it's very, very popular. Next question is coming from Cameron Snook. He's asking, what inspired, this is for the new album, what inspired the first song that you worked on the new album?
Well, the thing is, I can't really recall what would be the first song that we did, because what tends to happen is you are constantly writing. You know, you start with an idea and you play around with it for a few hours or a few days, and then you leave it, and then you try something else, then you go back and see if you've changed your mind or if you still like it or if you had a new idea. So everything is sort of constantly evolving. It's a bit like, you know, painting 20 different paintings at the same time and slowly working them all up from slightly abstract backgrounds, and then some you go, no, it's not working, I'm not going to finish that one, I'll leave that aside, maybe I'll come back to it in a few years' time. And then others you do work on or finish, and others you suddenly go, oh, that's not working, I'm going to start again, but I'm going to keep that tree. So I don't think there was one song we could say was the first one we wrote or the first one we finished. They're all just work in progress, slowly going forward together as a body of work.
Brilliant. I'm just going to start to now discuss some of your past and past creative process. I've got a question coming from Kurt Iverson, and he says, one question on my mind since 1986.
All right, okay.
What's with the phrase, heaven knows?
Did I use it a lot?
It's obviously sunk in with this guy.
Yeah, I tend to go through phases of using certain phrases or words. I mean, there was a lot of stuff in the early 80s that seemed to be mothers and arms, seemed to be in a lot of songs. So yeah, heaven and heaven knows and heaven is and heaven won't. I guess I was just reaching for some, intense, powerful word, a superlative. As you know, I'm an atheist, so that probably confuses people. It's so long ago now. I mean, that's 31 years ago. I don't remember specifically why I would have chosen to use it. It was obviously just a powerful word that was resonating with me at the time.
You've used Concrete Hands again on the new album. Is that?
Yeah, well, that was specifically a reference to me. As we open, so we close is about me, and it's about initially it's about learning to recognise the way you are because of your own fears and insecurities. And one of the things I've always had, I mean, I'm growing into my hands now, but I've had hands that look like an old man's hands since I was 5, and it really bothered me. I hated it. So now I'm kind of getting used to them. But the phrase concrete hands obviously was the title of the B-side, but I used it in a reference to me about, sort of the cold facade, the arm and the concrete hand. It's about me dismantling myself and re-evaluating some of my positives and negatives.
Great. Next one is actually coming from Sandra, who's actually my wife, who submitted this one.
Uh-oh.
And it's funny enough, it's touching on atheism, and she says, over the years you've used a lot of religious themes and topics and sounds, but you are an atheist. What is it? What's the interest in religion?
Obviously, for the vast majority of people in the world, it's been hugely influential in terms of making them do certain things, act certain ways, believe in things. And I have become more and more strongly atheist as I've got older. I'm absolutely sure that all of the religions on the world are invented by human beings. There is no God as described to us in any of the religions that are extant now. We are all made of atoms, which are the same ones that are in the stars and in the universe and in the trees and in the wind and in the soil. And we have this amazing ability with the atoms that we are, that we seem to be able to perceive ourselves. Now, I don't know whether, other animals can do that. I don't know whether trees and plants can do it. And there may be other living species on other planets in other galaxies who may be made in a completely different way, who can perceive themselves. And in fact, one of them might be right here, right now, in a different parallel universe, but we can't even perceive each other. But no God, as far as I'm concerned, made us. That's the bottom line. However, because I recognise the power of religion, and particularly the power of religious music, because it's designed to tick the boxes, to make you feel, to move you, to motivate you, to feel lifted up or pushed down. I mean, religious music is powerful, and so we've used the sounds of religious music to generate emotional feelings.
It's interesting, on Punishment and Luxury you used the word Purgatory, and there was a non-native member on Facebook who was asking what it meant, and she was hearing it as being Burger Tree.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Well, I mean, listen, the Punishment and Luxury title has been quite a tricky one, actually, because I keep having to explain that we appropriated the title and not the meaning of the original painting, because the original painting is frankly misogynist. It's bad mothers in purgatory because they wanted something beyond what women were supposed to be content with. So the reference to purgatory is a wink towards that painting, but also it's the modern purgatory that we find ourselves in, where most people now have more time than they used to have to use their brains. And our brains are amazing. You know, they've allowed us to reflect backwards and plan forwards. But the problem is that now we spend so much time in our heads and not in the now, because we're not having to get food or build shelters or survive on a 24-hour basis. Our brains are dangerous places, and they can be manipulated by other people, the salesmen who are, you know, trying to get us to buy their products, and replace religion and replace royal decree with a sense of like, you're not worthy unless you own this. So the purgatory that I'm now referring to is not a religious purgatory. It's the purgatory of being trapped in your own mind and being manipulated by people into buying shit you don't need.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're coming to a question from Catherine Hooper, and she states, clearly you make more tracks than you need to for an album. Do you have a tick-off list of which track must achieve to actually get on the album, or do you rely on the gut feeling? And supplementary question, what stopped No Man's Land from being on English Electric? It's a fantastic emotional track and would have sounded great here.
We don't have a checklist of like, you know, a song has to get 5 ticks or something to get onto the album. It is gut feeling. I find now, I think that because we take more time than we had done, so particularly in the second half of the 80s, the mid and second half of the 80s, we have the time now to develop ideas, to step back from them and try to achieve objectivity again, because you can leave them for months. Whereas, you know, in the old days, we'd write the album in a few weeks, we'd go into the studio for a few months, and it was done. And then 6 months later, you'd go, well, that one works. Oh, that one, oh, we could have maybe done better or changed it, or, you know. So, we think that we get a pretty good average of knowing that we've got a good collection of songs. But yes, there are always others, some of which we leave because we think there's some good things in them, but they're not finished, but well, maybe we'll keep them for the next album or something in the future. No Man's Land, I thought was too potentially consciously retro. I thought it sounded too much like an early OMD song. So I think we just held it off the album, because on English Electric we were trying to have a homogenised sound that stepped forward as one sound, and it was much more clean and simplified and electronic, and No Man's Land was a lot more kind of organic and you know, choirs and drums and things. But I mean, it's a great song. It's very moving, and it should move me. I wrote it, so it should resonate with me, and it does. So I'm glad that Catherine likes it. You know, people have always said about our B-sides they should have been on our albums. There's loads of people who find the B-sides more engaging than half the tracks on the album. And that's why we very often put all the B-sides together in packages for people, you know.
Excellent.
I mean, listen, 2 weeks ago, Paul and I wrote a B-side for the next single from the Punishment Luxury album. And after about 3 hours of working on it, when I'd cut the guide vocal, we were just sat there looking at each other and we were like, this is too good, isn't it? We're not going to have, no, we'll keep this. We'll keep this for next year. So we've got a song that's called Don't Go that is, you know, was going to be a B-side, but even we recognised when we were writing it, no, we're hanging on to this one. This one's a keeper, this is not going on a B-side.
That's really very interesting. Question here now from Ian Plested. He says, do you have a favourite preset sound that you try to use on every song? It says every song.
No, actually, we try to avoid preset sounds that we've had before, because what you don't want is, you know, going, oh, that sounds like the synth in such and such, or that's the... I mean, the reality is that, you know, the organ sounds we've used for years just because we like them. And choirs we like, you know, if you want something to just be lifted up, we go straight to the mellotron and the choirs. We try to get the synth melodies to sound different. It's hard to do that because we've done so many. I mean, to actually get the sound of the melody and the melody itself to be different to all the other things we have written over the decades, it's not easy. No, you have to work bloody hard at it to try not to sound like something you've done before. And you don't always succeed. I mean, you know, it's funny really, artists are allowed to paint lots and lots of pictures in a certain style and explore, you know, Picasso had his bloom period and his monolithic period and, you know, and his cubism. And you're allowed to explore it in lots of different ways. But it seems as a musician, you know, you're not allowed to explore a theme. It's like, you know, if you wrote a song about that, you can't write about it again. If you wrote it with this chord sequence, you can't use that again. It's quite an interesting, different set of parameters that visual artists and musical artists are judged by. It's and believe me, I mean, we keep trying to find new sounds, and it gets harder and harder to come up with something where you just go, oh, well, we've done that before, oh, we've used that sound. You know.
You've done very well over 39 years.
Thank you. God knows what we're going to do next. Oh, I used his name. Sorry, mate, who doesn't exist.
Jane Rachel wants to ask about Agnus Dei and Apollo 11.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day. We're hearing on dance music. Why didn't you go down that dance sort of sound in those early 90s?
Because it seemed sort of a bit gratuitous to try to just copy a new sound to the detriment, potentially to the detriment of doing what you feel comfortable with. We're always listening to new styles, and it's great when you can find something that you can adopt and adapt to your own sound. But you can't just go, oh, you know, right, we're going to make a jungle record now, or we're going to make an EDM record. Oh, let's go make a ska record. It's just gratuitous, you know, and particularly as you get older, it's a bit like, you know, I'm 58 now. I'd look really daft if I tried to, you know, dress in clothes that, you know, somebody, you know, a third of my age would dress in, or if I decided to have, you know, one of those big beards, like a Civil War beard, it would just be ridiculous. So,
yeah, I can't see Andy being a hipster somehow.
No, it's not going to
work. Colin Caulfield, quite a direct, simple, two-worded question. Crush. Why?
Well, that's very open-ended, isn't it? What is he asking there? Why did we call the album Crush? Why was the song called Crush? Why did we make the album Crush? Because he doesn't like it? I wonder what he's asking.
There was a phrase amongst fans to justify Crush, where people used to say it's a diverse album.
That sounds like damning with faint praise, doesn't it? I think, I mean, we've said it before, the Crush album and the Pacific Age album were both made when we were under immense pressure in terms of the time we had available. And also, it's interesting because, I mean, I know a lot of people think that we wanted to sell more records, so we got Stephen Hagen to produce. And we wanted to sell more records in America, so we wrote more American themes. And neither of those things are actually true. We were struggling. We weren't giving ourselves enough time. We were struggling to write songs and have ideas. And we knew we didn't want to just sound like Architecture and Morality, or even Dazzle Ships. But in casting around and getting a little lost and confused and insecure, the record company then finally came in and took, finally took control off us and said, well, why don't you work with this guy? He's done some great records with New Order and the Pet Shop Boys, and we succumbed to that. And then because we were looking for new themes, we just started going to America. We were spending a lot of time in America. We weren't trying to break America by writing songs about America. We were just fascinated by the novelty of it. So we were writing about something we'd just discovered. And people just make an assumption that, it was because we were trying to break America or have more hits that we worked with Stephen Hague and we wrote the songs we did. I think Pacific Age is actually the one that really, in hindsight, we'd been on the road for 8 or 9 months and we had no money. This is, money shouldn't be the most important thing, but it's influence when you've got none. We had work, we'd been in the band for, almost 10 years. We'd sold at least 20 million singles, 10 million albums. We were starting to be successful in America, lots of hits, lots of television, lots of front covers of magazines. And yet after all of this success, and believe me, we weren't buying yachts or flying around the world in Learjets. We weren't particularly decadent. But we owed the record company £1 million. And every time we came off tour, they would say, can we have an album by Christmas? And our manager would say, you've got no money. I mean, our accountant in 1988 said, you've got 2 options. Stop the band now and declare and just stop. Or make a best of album because you owe the record company £1 million and there's no royalties coming in and you've got bills to pay. So what do you want to do? Stop now and do a best of album because they're your only 2 options. You're absolutely financially screwed. So it was, that was, so that, not all decisions are based upon, oh yeah, we're going to try and have a hit in America and all. There's various pressures on you.
The next question is coming from Catherine Hooper. Again, yeah, we allowed up to 2 questions. Okay. So this should be her final one if this has been edited correctly. It says, usually your albums have quite distinctive sounds from one album to another. So how would you describe the sound for Punishment of Luxury? And this question was asked before the album was released and is an obvious single from it. So the album, this question came before they knew what was happening.
I think we were pleased with the movement we made on English Electric to be, more than the sound, it was actually the concept, to be writing songs that were more specifically based upon ideas, intellectual ideas, made into songs. And I think that was one of the problems we had in the past when we were struggling to find the time for our well of inspiration to fill up. And it was like, well, you need to write some songs. I haven't got anything I want to write about, I haven't got any new thoughts, I haven't got any new inspirations, but I just had to write some lyrics. So that's when I feel that some of my lyrics weren't very good in the past. So I think English Electric was the first one of the new ones where we really, it was about the intellectual aesthetic of it and also to strip it down and sound more minimal and more electronic. There was definitely a conscious ethos in that. And so I think Punishment of Luxury, we wanted to take that further if we could, strip even more, use different sounding drums. Drums are the building blocks, and if you can have different sounding drums, then it does change the perception of the song. Although, if you read the reviews of Punishment of Luxury, you wouldn't know it half the time. Because, we could do the weirdest things we could possibly try to do, and believe me, we have. I mean, some of the sounds we used on the album are pretty weird and pretty new, and still people go, "Oh, sounds like the '80s." It's like, I mean, we were really pleased that the rhythm track of As We Open, So We Close we finally really got to use kind of glitch sounds. We actually made a whole track out of completely dysfunctional, quite discordant sounds that then I sang on, and it was sort of woven together with some little melodies that sort of glued it together, and it sort of came together in a slightly more conventional way, and then it sort of fell apart again at the end, back into those dysfunctional sounds. We were definitely trying to do that. We were definitely trying to, things like Robot Man and Punishment of Luxury have got very, very kind of crunchy, aggressive drums on them. You know, bass drums that kind of go, and snare drums that are like, zoch, not just, you know, click, boom, you know. So, trying to challenge ourselves, trying to do something different, but, you know, because we believe in musicality, we like to experiment. But at the end of the day, our experiment, we hope, leads us to somewhere that we get excited enough to engage in it in a musical way. And then by the time, we made an analogy recently in an interview that, you know, we jump off the cliff of experiments, but by the time we hit the ground, we've opened up the Orchestral Manoeuvres and Dark Parachutes, and it has a musicality to it that if you listen to the very first draft of the demo, you go, where the hell are these guys going with this? You know, and that's the idea. Where the hell are we going? We don't know. That's why we get excited. You know, we want to challenge ourselves. In the end, we'll put a melody on it and I'll sing on it and we'll reel it back in again. But you know, maybe we should try not being musical. But we did that in 1983 with Dazzle Ships, and look what happened.
Well, you must have had a message from above, because the next question is from Paul Bailey, and he's put, considering how you effectively disowned Dazzle Ships at the time, are you surprised how it's now been viewed as a classic and is a key influence on bands like Radiohead?
I'm not surprised it seems to be considered the most influential album that we did, because it was very radical. I dispute the fact that we disowned it. I think we recognised why it hadn't been as successful as its predecessors. And consciously and unconsciously we kind of dialed ourselves back from it. And also, when it was re-released on its 25th birthday, I had learnt enough about the music industry to know that you can manipulate what people think. And so I wrote the press release as a third person, and it was me who called it our fractured masterpiece, our dysfunctional piece of genius. All of these phrases which now keep getting repeated back to me about, oh, well, you know, yes, it's your fractured masterpiece. Yeah, I know it is, because I told you it was.
Sneaky. We're coming to some questions about tours, and
I'll tell you what, before we move on though, I have to say, being able to play Dazzle Ships, all of it, and some of the B-sides, in the Royal Albert Hall, was really quite amazing. I mean, okay, you know, we did Architectural Manoeuvres as well, and it's funny because the two of them together now don't seem so different, but at the time it was like, you know, chalk and cheese. But to stand on stage in the Dazzle Ships section and play, knowing that 5,000 people were waiting for the next weird piece of shit that they'd never heard live before, rather than waiting for the next hit single, was the most liberating feeling. It was just, I was so calm. There was no tension. I thought we would be so nervous. We knew there was going to be so much love in the room, and we'd rehearsed, we knew we could do it. So we just went out there like, this is going to be great. And I mean, when we finished ABC Auto Industry, I actually yelped with joy. I put in my flag and I went, yeah, this is not very cool at all, but I just knew it was going to be the most liberating feeling ever at a gig, not having to worry about they're waiting for a hit single because this is too weird for them.
It was a buzzing night, actually, I must admit. It really was exceptional.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm glad you liked it.
Okay.
A lot of people did.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
Including us.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I'm just going to digress here. As you've got older, you on the stage are enjoying yourself, and you can see you're enjoying yourself, and that really does come over.
Yeah, I am. I've mellowed. I've finally mellowed with age. Do you know what finally dawned on me? How thick I am. It finally dawned on me. All these people have bought a ticket. So they probably like what we do. So this isn't a battle I have to win. This is a journey we're all sharing here. We're all on the same team. There's not a competition. I used to be so uptight on stage, so nervous that, you know, people were going to be critical or judgmental, and that I had to win every battle of every second with every person in the audience. And I don't think like that now.
No. I mean, you were at the Gary Newman concert in Liverpool last year, also went to that, and you could also see it very similar with Gary Newman now, where he's enjoying it, and it's really come out and he's going for it because he wants to do it.
He doesn't have anything to prove, you know. Gary went through a horrendous time where his career was at the height of his success. The plug was pulled on his career largely by nasty journalism. That's what I feel. And I think he kind of retreated into his shell and didn't know what to do because he just got such vitriol poured on him. And slowly but surely he's remade himself. And he's done it, I don't know whether consciously or unconsciously, very cleverly, into a very dark niche market. But it's a big niche for people who like kind of quite dark industrial music. And he now has an incredible audience.
And a new album coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. I love the new single and the video for it. It's great.
Yeah. Coming on to another question from Anne-Marie Sykes. She says, will you consider doing a day on the Green Tour in Australia, whatever that may be?
I would consider doing anything we can in Australia. We've been desperately trying to get to Australia. The dilemma we have in Australia is it's going to cost so much money to get there. No promoter thinks we can sell enough tickets on our own to guarantee us the money that we wouldn't lose a fortune. And we have tried to go there with packages, you know, to say to other bands, well, you know, let's do it together. You know, maybe the three of us can sell a small arena or a big theatre or something. We get an economy of scale here. We haven't had any takers. Yeah, believe me, you know, we want to get down to Australia and New Zealand. We want to play to as many people as we can do. And, you know, we still haven't done a proper tour of South America. We had a South American tour booked this summer. We had played with Peru and Chile and Argentina, all booked. The promoter fell through, flaky, you know. We had to cancel it because suddenly the money he guaranteed us wasn't in the bank when he said it was. So, you know, and I have friends who have been to South America and lost tens of thousands of pounds going there because they got there and the promoter turned out to be a liar, you know. And people don't buy tickets now in South America until they know you're in the country because they've been ripped off so many times. So, you know, it's not that we're not going to Australia because we hate people in Australia. If we could find a way to do it, we will. We are playing, next year we're playing Scandinavia and the Iberian Peninsula and Poland and a few other places as a two-man. We've now started doing two-man gigs where we just, you know, if there's only 750 people, we can't take 4 band and 8 crew and a bus and all the equipment. We just can't do it. So we're going to do it as a two-man, and that way at least people do get to see OMD. And if I say so myself, we're pretty damn good as a two-man as well.
An interesting question, which is reflecting on the previous question. This is from somebody called Liz Marshall, who also mentioned saw it in Australia. and she says, or New Zealand, I'd come to that, and so would all my fangirl mates. So anything on New Zealand?
Yeah, love to. We played 3 gigs in New Zealand in our entire career of 39 years. Believe me, I thought New Zealand as a place to go was just glorious. I loved it. So yeah, I'd love to get down there again. If we can, we will.
Paul Kennelly is asking, please do a gig in Bristol. The west of England gets overlooked.
We're playing at Colston Hall.
He didn't know this at the time.
And it's sold out. I hope he's got a ticket.
Robert Hake, his question would be, will you ever tour Scandinavia again? Places like Stockholm, Gothenburg, Oslo, etc.
We will as a team, definitely. I've seen the tour. I've seen the tour too.
Yeah.
It's February next year. But again, you have to wait.
Yeah, no, that's
to
fine.
To let this cat out of the bag.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Paul Kennelly would like to ask, will we be able to hear Paul sing Secret live? As this is such an awesome song and he loves his electronic music and it's on his bucket list to hear. Haha.
We play it in America all the time. Why doesn't he go to America and watch us do it? It's a small dilemma we have about which songs to play in which countries. Because, Secret wasn't a big hit here. People know that we've played it in Mexico and America and Canada now, so they probably think we should include it in the set. But of course, when we go out on the road, we've got 5 Punishment to Luxury tracks to fit into the set. And we're not sure how many we're going to play from History of Modern or English Electric. It's when you've got 13 albums to choose from, we know that people don't want us to play the whole of the new album. There will be a few people who will go, oh, but you didn't play my favourite new song. You can't make everybody completely happy. You're going to drop somebody's favourite ball somewhere.
A question from Scott Kidd. After touring with your older albums for the last few years, are you looking forward to getting back on the road now with new material again?
Yeah, well, in 2010 we toured with History of Modern, and in 2013 we toured with English Electric, so, we've enjoyed. And I think the English Electric tour was, about 40% of the set was, from the 2 new albums. And the nice thing was the audience didn't all get up and leave, so that was nice. It made us believe, hopefully correctly, that the quality of the new material stands up against the older stuff. The only downside is that we don't have radio hit singles, so that people are not going to be as aware of Dresden or Punishment and Luxury as they would be of Souvenir or Enola Gay. We decided, we got back together and we played in 2006, didn't we? And then we did a couple more tours. And after 2 years, we just went, okay, we can't do this. We cannot. Some people can, and it's okay. If all they want to do is just be their own legacy, their own tribute band, that's fine. I'm not going to criticise them for it. And the reality is that their fans will happily go and see them every 3 years, playing all the songs they love and all the hits that they, the landmarks of their life. We try to do that, but we don't just want to do that. The ethos of the band was to try to do something new that challenged us and to find new things to talk about. So to go on stage for the rest of our lives and only repeat stuff that some of which is now 40 years old just doesn't really seem appropriate. We're trying to strike a balance.
Question from Louise White, and obviously this was before we knew the answer to this question. Your support act, Tiny Magnets, how did that come about?
2 years ago, I went to Dusseldorf to the Electric City Convention, and I didn't see Tiny Magnetic Pets play, I missed them. But very cannily, I was introduced to them by I don't know, it was the manager of the label, and given a CD, which I dutifully brought home. And when people give me CDs, I don't file them in the bin. If they've been kind enough to give me their art, I'm kind enough to give them the time to listen to it. Don't necessarily always like it, but I will listen to it. And I listened to their album, and there were 5 tracks on there. I mean, I like the whole album, but there were 5 tracks on there that blew me away, that are now in my playlist, that I listen to all the time. They were so beautifully crafted, so touching, such a perfect combination of emotion and clever writing. I just thought, wow. And so when we were thinking about a support band, I mean, we got offered, as soon as the tour got announced, we must have been offered at least 24 potential support acts. And Paul and I agreed that none of them really kind of resonated with us as much as Tiny Magnetic Pets. So we asked them, and they've got a new album coming out as well. So I did send Sean an email. I said, I know you've got a new album coming out, but please, you've got to play these songs just for me. So hopefully they will.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll throw you off the tour.
Well, as I say, it's going to be interesting actually hearing them, because I'm not familiar with them at all myself. So yeah, it's going to be good.
Yeah, great.
A question from Alferia. Does it become easier to play your old material, or do you have to go back and relearn the parts?
Well, obviously 10 years ago we had to relearn everything because we hadn't played it for so long. But now, yeah, I mean, most of them, we can play Electricity and Holiday Souvenir in our sleep. That'll be a cue for me to screw up every single one of those on tour now. Yeah, no, we're pretty good. We know what we're doing. I mean, listen, we still make. Well, I make most of the mistakes. Paul makes a few. Martin hardly ever makes a mistake. And when he does, he beats himself up about it. And we always say, listen, Mark, don't beat yourself up about it. Most people will blame Paul anyway.
Well, we won't mention Talking Loud and Clear.
I've managed to get Talking Loud and Clear, so I remember the vocals now, because I found a way of doing it. Amazingly, because the lyrics are so similar and repetitive, I had to get a handle. I just had to remember the opening line, and then the rest of it would hang on that peg. And would you believe the 4 separate sections start with the letters T, O, T, P. Top of the Pops. So if I remember Top of the Pops, I get the lyrics right. There's a method to everything.
Ian Plested would like to ask, acoustic-wise, is there a favoured venue in the UK to play in? And do you ever get out to actually see bands yourself in small pubs, small venues at all?
Yeah, I do go and see bands. I generally try to keep a fairly low profile. I didn't manage to keep a low profile at the Olympia when Newman was on, because I got invited into the box and then I got spotted and I couldn't really hide. But yeah, there are some venues which we find easier to play than others, which we like more than others. And it's not so much about the sound, it's actually about whether you can feel and hear the audience. You know, there was one that was always very difficult, was the Birmingham Odeon. Its particular acoustic shape, it was very funnel-like, so that the audience, you know, there could be 2,500 people in there going nuts, and all of their applause seemed to be going away from it. It was funneled away, and we'd come off stage sometimes and go, and people go, what do you mean? They were going ballistic out there. Couldn't you hear them? We're like, well, no, actually, it didn't sound that crazy. So you always thrive on venues that where you get audience feedback. Now we now cheat, because we're wearing 2 in-ears, well most of us are, if you don't have microphones on the audience, you can't hear them, you know? So we just all say to the monitor man, okay, not too loud with the audience when we're playing, but as soon as we finish, push the applause up. So it's like, oh yeah, they love us, great stuff. Maybe that's what's helping me look more relaxed and happy on stage.
It explains a lot. Right, this name, I hope I get right, is Mick and Beth Misselli Cooper. Best worst support band that you've had?
Well, the trouble is if you say best, you're then dissing or doing down some of the others. We've had some great ones. Gosh, you know, we've had Howard Jones open for us before he'd had his first hit. Loved having the Vile Electrodes with us. John Fox has played with us. Villanar were great. People in the 80s I've forgotten. You know, I mean, the China Crisis supported us in 2008-9, was it? A great support band, you know, amazing songs. And we've had some wonderful support. I mean, you know, if we have a choice in the matter, we go for somebody that we like. Sometimes we didn't have choices in the matter, and you know you like the people even if you don't particularly like them. So I don't think we ever had a support when we didn't like the people. So
Okay, a question from the same person, just asking what it was like for you to be the support guys for the Barenaked Ladies.
Oh, Newman supported us as well. God, yeah, you know. Don't forget Gary Newman, which of course was amazing because we'd supported him in 79. He was so wonderful. He gave us such a great break. I mean, you know, to be allowed to go and play all those venues that we were going to headline ourselves a year later, and he took us on his bus and carried the gear and gave us free. I mean, he carried us literally in every sense of the word. It was so generous of him, and I always appreciate that. What were we talking about?
Barenaked Ladies.
Barenaked Ladies, yeah. It was. Well, do you know what? I couldn't believe when we got asked that. It made no sense at all to begin with. And then, of course, I find out that we are one of the favourite bands of Kevin Hearn, who's the keyboard player. And Howard Jones is the favourite artist of Ed Robertson, who's the lead singer. So they go on tour every year, every couple of years, do a big summer tour. And I think this year they just went, hey, why don't we just ask the guys that we loved when we were teenagers and see if they say yes? And we both said yes. And it was great. It was the, you know, longest North American tour we've done in years, playing the sheds in the summer, 45 minutes a night. Great. And what lovely people. And their crew. I don't think I've ever been on a tour where from top to bottom, every single person was really nice. Nothing, no issues. It was just great. Great band, great crew, and Howard Jones and all his gang were great as well.
Rihanna Biddle is asking, when you've done these 80 reunion gigs, which you've done a number of over the last couple of years, what do you talk about with other bands, the singers and the survivors?
It just depends who they are. I mean, recently we played at Flashpoint, and talking with Martin Fry, because he's just a really nice, sociable guy. Whenever we see Martin, we make a point of having a conversation, and we always have a nice conversation. There doesn't seem to be any angle with him. He's complimentary to us and we're complimentary to him. And last time I'd seen him was actually at the Eddie the Eagle premiere, and he said, hey, I'm taking a page out of your book, I'm doing a new album, you know. And then of course he comes out with Next Thing I Love 2 that is a really big success. So I was talking to him about congratulations. Then I was talking to Ian Brody about the old days of Liverpool and Eric's and Big in Japan, and also the fact that his son wants to be in the music industry and so does mine, and how hard it is for the second generation. You know, so just depends. Different. A lot of people you don't get to see because they come in, do their slot and leave. I mean, for example, when we played the first festival of the year down in Theresa May's constituency, what's it called? Maidenhead.
Yeah.
We, I really would have liked to have seen Steve Harley. Was it that gig or was it a different gig? Anyway, I wanted to see Steve Harley and I couldn't because the rest of the band didn't want to go to the gig that early.
Right.
And by the time we got there, he'd gone.
Yeah.
Because I was such a fan. I had a Steve Harley and Cockney Rebels scrapbook. So, you know, you just... Some people you don't even see and some people don't seem to be terribly talkative and others are.
Okay. Just going on to new projects. Question from David Cannings wants to ask, what topic or theme are you currently interested in that you may turn into an OMD song or project? But obviously we've now got Punishments of Luxury. Are you thinking into the future?
Right now I've kind of exhausted all the things I wanted to say. I got a couple of things that didn't work. Now I don't know whether I should tell you about them or not. I'm trying to write a song called Anthropocene, which is the phrase that's being coined now about it's the era of the human species. That people say that in millions of years' time, you know, you'll be able to see the Anthropocene era because of fossil fuels, or, you know, we killed off most of the other animals, or the glaciers melted and sea level rose. You'll see it. We've created our own layer in the rock. We're in the process of doing it. So that's something I'm trying to write. I tried several different ways of doing it and couldn't get one that worked, so got that one up my sleeve for next time round.
Paul Kennelly is asked, would you ever do a collaboration with another electronic band, Pet Shop Boys, Human Glee, Vangelis, or anything like that?
Yeah. Yeah, we will.
Okay, we'll leave that one there, shall we? Spencer Arcadia, it says, any chance of giving Crush, Pacific Age or Sugar Tact a deluxe remaster?
Yeah, there will be. I mean, we've been holding back the tide of Universal, who own our catalogue now, because we wanted to we knew we had Punishment of Luxury coming, and we kept saying to them, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, let us get the new album out. And then we said, but 2018 is the 40th anniversary. Then we'll talk to you about doing some special editions. So okay. There will be done. They will be done.
A question from Kevin Hitch. He mentions the Royal Albert Hall was amazing. Would you ever consider doing the first two albums live?
Maybe. It's not something you can do, you know, every year. And the dilemma is, how many tracks do we play live from the first two albums? What do we play?
Well, you've got Electricity, Messages.
Nola Gay.
Yeah, Nola Gay.
We know 3 of the 19 tracks we'd have to learn. That's a shitload of rehearsing and programming. I mean, the amount of work, first of all, that Paul had to do to program those songs up for us on the Pro Tools and the keyboard sounds. And we had to get the tapes and bake them and take the sounds out. You know, the amount of work, it was months and months of work. And then we had to rehearse them, which was an awful lot of rehearsing. We were quite relieved actually when we got to play the 3 gigs in Germany as well, because it just, in the end we just thought, we're doing all of this work for one concert at the Royal Albert Hall. We must be mad. So, you know, maybe, but I think there's a few other things we want to do first.
Darren Welch, I'm not too sure where he's got this from, but according to the rumour
It's a lie.
I've not heard this one, but the rumour mill is grinding its cogs. He says, are you guys looking to retire soon?
We're always looking to retire. Even the cat wants to retire and be home more often. If you do something properly, you put your heart and soul into it. Writing an album, promoting it, doing a tour. When you're getting closer to 60 than you are to 20, by a long way, it's tiring. You know, if you're going to do it properly, you put everything in, and it's exhausting. So you come out the end of it, and you do stop. You need to stop. And one of the things as well that, you know, with Malcolm's cardiac arrest 4 years ago, it was made abundantly clear to us that, you know, we are mortal. We have a finite time on this planet. The only people to whom it really matters are us and the people who we love and who love us. So it's lovely that we're blessed that we can make songs and do tours. That's incredible that we can still do that. But we don't want to do that 365 days of the year. And you know what? When we stopped for 12 months after Malcolm, you know, died and then did his Lazarus, in actually taking the time to what are you trying to tell me? In actually taking the time to give Malcolm the time to have no pressure on him for 12 months, yeah, we spent more time with the people we love, and actually it was a double win, because by switching off and just doing things that were not specifically musical, we recharged our batteries, our well of inspiration filled up with ideas of different things, because we weren't constantly using it, so we were just, things were seeping into them, and it fills more slowly anyway. When you've now made 13 albums, you know, you've tried to write at least, say, 130 plus songs that are all different. It's freaking hard to come up with new ideas. It really, really is. So, if you want to do it properly, it takes time. And my other favourite phrase is, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And it's not easy. That's not big-headed. It's not easy. If you want to do it properly, it's bloody hard. But I don't mind doing it. I just need to take a deep breath and a good long run at it these days.
Well, this is
and then have a rest at the end.
Well, this is more of a statement from somebody called Paul Kennelly. He says, never retire, keep early lows and keep entertaining the fans.
Yeah, I'd like all of that to be true, thank you.
Would you ever consider, again this is coming from George Scott, would you ever consider doing an album of covers at all?
No, not really. I think the problem with an album of cover versions is that it smells too much of, you run out of ideas and it's the end and you're just desperate. You know, it's like doing, you know, doing a remix album or a instrumental album or a reworked album or an acoustic version of it. I mean, it's just, what it says is, we want to make an album because we want your money, and we want to tour because we want your money and we like touring, but we don't actually have anything of real new or you know, relevant current value to give you. So, sorry. The cat thinks the interview's over. Is it over? Or do we need to put you out of the room?
Not long to go.
This is the love I have for animals. I'm not even a cat lover, and this cat's now 18 years old. And I'm allergic to cats.
Oh, wow.
But the cat adopted you?
Well, no, the cat came from a rescue place, didn't you? Hey, Tiger? And you're still not sure about me because presumably you had a hard life when you were young, and yeah, but you're very talkative, aren't you? Are you just hungry? The interview is now about the cat.
Okay, just coming back on to questions. Paul Kennelly, have you ever considered doing a Christmas song? He says if you do, they'll keep you roses forever.
Well, yeah, I mean, the amount of money that Noddy Holder is supposed to make every year, I think it's a bit too late for us to. I mean, we should have written a Christmas hit back in 1981, so it would now be on every compilation album and it would be played to death. The only way we would make big money out of a Christmas hit now would be to write one for Adele or Ed Sheeran or somebody like that.
Okay, just coming on.
And that isn't going to happen.
No. Coming on to your personal life a little bit, Catherine Hooper.
This is her third question. Sorry, I can't answer it. Sorry, quota. Especially about personal life.
This is quite pertinent actually. It says, what personal qualities are you grateful for from your parents that instilled on you, and what do you hope that you'll give to your children if that's not being too personal?
I'm not going to talk about my children.
No.
Other than to say that I love them. I am a very unholy mixture of fear and shyness and insecurity with determination, and it's always been a difficult juggle for me. And the one thing that I've been very, very fortunate, and I don't know, this is just my personal balance of the genes that my parents gave me and the environment in which I was raised. I'm very fortunate that my considerable anxieties and insecurities are actually used by me as an engine to drive me forward, rather than an anchor that paralyses me and holds me down. I don't know how that happened. I don't think it was always like that. It's developed and it's got stronger as it's proved to be efficient and effective for me. But yeah, my demons are my engine. And I'm so grateful that that is the way I balanced out. Because I see other people and their demons paralyse them. And they could achieve a lot more. They could be happier with themselves. I mean, that's the most important thing, is, you know, all we all want is to just be able to love ourselves and be happy in our own skin. And so many people aren't, and it just ruins their lives. And it has a negative effect on the other people in their lives.
Yeah, Harvey Smith, a deep, massive question, Andy, with a wink on this one. He says, I know you still hold an interest for archaeology, and on the other hand, you're an atheist. You wasn't very responsive on the established religions, but do you know a book called Forbidden Archaeology, The Hidden History?
No. I mean, Hagen will have to educate me. You know, this sounds like conspiracy theories to me. I'm sure there's all sorts. Yeah, there's an awful lot of religions who forbid the knowledge of other religions. You know, you get iconoclasm all the time. You know, I mean, we just had ISIS blowing up temples a few years ago. And the Christians and the Muslims and the Buddhists and the Hindus have all been doing it to each other's gods and religious iconography. So, you know, there's an awful lot of forbidden stuff around, I guess. But I don't know specifically to what Hagen is.
No. Okay, Jed Kenyon says hi.
Hi.
And he says, if you had the opportunity to add another member to the band that was a previous member, so who would that be and why?
I'm not answering that. You know, everybody's been great. You know, I mean, listen, if Malcolm wasn't ill, we wouldn't be working with Stuart. I love working with Malcolm, I love working with Stuart. But you can only use one drummer at a time. You know, I liked working with Nigel, I liked working with Abe. you know, it's I haven't worked with that many people actually. You know, and when you think about all the years, I haven't worked with that many people. So I'm grateful for all the people I have worked with. Okay. I don't think I'd be able to get them, even that few, all on stage at once. There'll be a conflict of interest somewhere.
It could be quite interesting. Mark Booth wants to ask, how much for the old bass, Andy?
Now it's not being used on tour. I know. I couldn't bring myself to part with it, I'm afraid. I just finally had to accept the fact that the old basses just didn't sound as good as the new ones. And when I found a new one that actually felt like the old, that was the most important thing. I had to find a new jazz bass that felt like the old one. And when I found the FSB Deluxe, and it had active pickups, so that now it's a bit naughty actually, because I like my bass really, lots of bottom, lots of top. And our out front sound guys, probably because I'm such a shit bass player, like it quite middly so they can disguise it in the mix. So they didn't want me processing it before it got to them so that they could control it, but the active pickups allow it. I can control it on the bass now, nothing on the side of the stage. So so I bought the FSB, and it's a beast. The only problem is it's so clean that when I play a bum note, oh boy, you can hear it. And I played plenty of them.
I'm just going to come into the present time, since many of these questions were asked. Yeah. This is actually some observations from myself. You've been producing some vinyl, and on the outruns there's a couple of things on there. Do you like Isotype, I should say, has got something called Tourist Babel on it. Mm-hmm. Do you know what that's about at all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You have to translate it into Latin, and yeah, there's a couple of others.
Yeah, I was going to say,
what's the other one?
Punishment of Luxury, is it Mag 15 Unom Veil? My eyesight's not so good, the writing's tiny, but I think it's Mag 15 Unom Veil.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what's that?
Yeah, I know what they are. Yeah, I wrote them. It's Latin, and you've misread it.
I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Well spotted though. I mean, I'm just being cryptic. I'm just having fun, just toying with people.
We like that.
Yeah.
Congratulations on getting an album to number 4. You must be chuffed.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we have to cut our cloth accordingly, guys. I mean, we worked very hard on that album. We believed it was worth people hearing. And I think that all the work we've done in the last 10 years has positioned us to have a fair number of people trust us enough to go and buy it without hearing the whole thing. So we're made up. I don't think if you told me 10 years ago that I'd have an album that was number 4 in the UK, number 8 in Germany on week of release, I think I would have believed it. So, it's pretty good.
We're all chuffed for you. The last couple of days we've seen some hints about possible Royal Liverpool Philharmonic again. Something happening.
Where's those hints been coming from?
Something on Facebook. Was there a picture of yourself doing a visit to them?
Yeah, I was in the Philharmonic Hall, yeah. Just having a cup of tea.
I think we've got some interesting things coming.
Do you know what blew me away? I went in the stage door and I sat down and then I went, hang on a minute. And I got on and I sat down leaning on a photo of me and Paul. The stage door, the stage entrance to the Philharmonic has got a giant blow up of our gig from 2009. And I sat down and went, that's Paul. Oh, there's me. It's like, bloody hell, this is our gig we did. Yeah, I was just there for a cup of tea, that's all. They have a nice cafe.
2018, your Ruby Year. 40 years. It's your Ruby. I've just done a
Thank
Ruby
you.
celebration for something else, but
Okay.
so congratulations as you come into your Ruby year, and you've got plans ahead.
Yeah, definitely. We will be trying to do some special events. We will be celebrating our back catalogue. Trying to do a few interesting things. I think what we're going to try to do is to take it from October, when we played our first gig at Eric's, through to May, which will be the 40th anniversary of the release of Electricity on Factory. So in that space, we're going to try to do some interesting celebrations.
I want to say, because it was October 78, 6323003. Poof, it vanished.
I know, but you know, it's coming back apparently. It's going to make a miraculous recovery. The power of social networks and outraged residents.
So I think there's congratulations on a group of fans after doing
Amazing.
come back with all of this.
Yeah,
So,
amazing. Yeah, I got a text. I was on my way to Liverpool. I got a text saying, you know, what do you think about the telephone box? I'm like, what about the telephone box? I'm like, it's gone. I'm like, what? So I did a detour to Mel's and there it wasn't. And the thing was, yeah, you know, the council had 3 months' notice and had chosen not to save it. Nobody was interested. They could have adopted it for £1. And now I imagine now it's going to cost them a lot more to get it back. But I'm glad it's coming back. It's what to do with it, you know, because I don't think it's going to be a telephone box. I think it's going to be a I don't know, something with, you know, something to do with it. You know, maybe turn it into a urine.
well, around our way there are libraries put into old phone boxes, and there are people talking about possibly making it into a bit of an OMD memorabilia inside.
I think that would be nice. I mean, I think it would be nice. It would just, it would be, I'd like it to be good, and I'd like it to be maintained, and I'll probably end up putting in some money as well to the friends to help out. I was going to buy it until I found out how much they cost to buy. Good Lord. But yeah, so no, really congratulations to the people who really made a noise about that. Because you know what, Wirral Council, they say they want to be a cultural destination like Liverpool, and you know, they could do this, that and the other. I mean, it's not exactly the first stage that the Beatles ever played on or something. It's not John Lennon's guitar or something, but it's a tiny little cultural thing that you could put you know, put your name on. I mean, if I really wanted to get pissed off about something, I'll tell you something I'm pissed off about, because you didn't ask me about it. I walked past Eric's on Monday for the first time in ages. There's a blue plaque above Eric's. Does it mention us? Does it? Fuck.
Well, there may be another project in the line for some fans to take up on that one.
If I had an ego, I'd be really upset about that.
do you not have to be dead for a blue plaque?
Is Ian McCulloch dead?
No.
Bunny Motor on it.
Right. That answer that. Just coming on to, we are coming right to the end of this now, but in the last few months, so what a year. You've got Trump, North Korea, possible nuclear attacks, Brexit, snap general elections. Has the world gone mad?
No, they're just trying to recreate 1983. I think it's time for another Battleships album.
There is a sense of history repeating. There really, really is a sense of history repeating. Can you send our love to Mali? People are still asking.
For those who want to know, and we always get asked, he's doing fine. He's still living in Germany. He's got a wonderful, wonderful lady who he's in love with, who's in love with him. And he's well. And we hope to see him when we play this year. It's hard. It's hard for him, you know. He's been a drummer since he was a kid, so it's hard for him to not be a drummer anymore. And to see us on tour, and it was a difficult decision. And in the end, he made it we left him for a year, and it was him that said he just couldn't do it, unfortunately. But he's okay, but thank you to everybody for asking.
And just jogging my memory to a previous question we asked, in York, you have got the next sort of colleague, Julia, coming on stage?
Everybody knows about this already, do they? I thought she wanted to keep this a secret, but I imagine she's blurted it all over her Facebook page. Yeah, so the York Barbican, which is already sold out, we will play Julia's song. Might be the only time on tour. And all she wants to do is just come on stage and go, hi, bye. That's it, that's all. But since we're playing in York, we're going to say hello to Julia Neal.
Well, I really hope she enjoys that.
I hope she does. I think she's going to be traumatised by
Yeah.
it, to be honest. I think she's going to need a lot of tranquilizers to get on stage. Yeah, several bottles of them.
So I'll just close here now, Lee. Again, just to say thank you to Antia, who helps me run this Facebook group.
Yes,
We're getting on to 6,000 members on there now.
Fantastic.
And to Julian, who sort of came in the last minute, who's been videoing this. So thank
you, Julian, who's standing behind the camera.
And good luck with your Ruby Year. And we're really looking forward to seeing your concerts just in a few months' time. Thank you, Andy McCluskey.
Thank you again.